game that takes place, someone has an edge over their opponent. And sports gaming is no different. Whether it's the house or patron, we'll tell you who has the edge for this week's matchups. And now, broadcasting live from the VSiN studios, it's The Edge, only on the Vegas Stats and Information Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2019 NFL Mock Draft here at VSiN. We have Chuck Esposito, Sunset Station Sportsbook Director, Bruce Marshall, editor of The Gold Sheet, and Brian Rogers, VSiN's executive producer. We all have teams. We're going to have to rotate here. We have pre-assigned teams. Chuck has the first pick. So, Chuck, you will have the first and the fifth, and that's the way it goes. And we will rotate in that order through the first round of the draft. If you're going to bet NFL draft props, hopefully this helps you get an understanding of how the first round might go and maybe gauge your bets accordingly. And we will have a VSiN draft show live for the first round next week, next Thursday night, starting at 5 o'clock Pacific time, so tune in for that. We did it last year. It was actually a great show. We're going to do it one more time right after My Guys in the Desert next Wednesday. So we are on the clock for the first pick. Chuck Esposito drafting for the Arizona Cardinals. And, Chuck, is this pick as easy as it seems to be?
I guess it is from all the chatter that's out there. I mean, is Arizona actually going to pick a first-round quarterback back-to-back years? I think they need a lot of help in a lot of areas. I don't think a quarterback is going to solve all that. I think part of Rosen's poor play last year was due to the offensive line. I think they could probably have traded back and got a quarterback. I think that they're hoping that Kingsbury, who knows Murray, can make him the next Mahomes. But I think Murray was a little bit of a product of the Big 12 and the lack of defense in the Big 12. I don't think he's going to have the same success, at least early on, that Mahomes did. Plus, Mahomes got to sit for a year. But I'm going to go ahead and make the pick. It's Kyler Murray at quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals.
All right, Chuck Esposito drafting for the Arizona Cardinals takes Kyler Murray, quarterback from Oklahoma. Chuck, we do have a 30-second draft clock, by the way. And keep an eye on that up there on the screen. And we are charting the picks on the screen. We'll also, when we get done, look at the players drafted by position, players drafted by conference, so you can gauge draft props that way. All those props, by the way, are up now at the South Point Sportsbook and going up at other places around Vegas. So the first pick by the Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray, quarterback out of Oklahoma. Bruce Marshall of the Gold Sheet, pick number 2 for the San Francisco 49ers.
I am John Lynch, and I'm open for trading. And my pick at 2 could be had for somebody who has multiple picks in the first round. This means the Giants might give me a call. This means the Raiders might give me a call, especially a team that's looking for one of the quarterbacks left on the board after Chuck took Kyler Murray for the Cardinals. But if John Lynch doesn't trade, I think they go for another defensive lineman with the first-round pick, and this is what they've been doing a lot lately. And I'd say Nick Bosa, defensive end, Ohio State, if the 49ers keep this pick.
You think there's a good chance they're going to deal it?
50-50 chance. He's going to be getting a lot of calls here, and he'll be very tempted.
Well, I think Bosa's a good fit for the Niners, too. So number 2 pick for the 49ers, made by Bruce Marshall, Nick Bosa, defensive end out of Ohio State. All right, now on the clock, the New York Jets. I will pick for the Jets, and we have some heated debate in the war room about who we should take. We're definitely going defense with this pick. And we also are open. Like
they're open for trading, too, believe me.
Trading as well. We are listening to offers for the number 3 pick, but we're not going to do trades on this mock draft here. Greg Williams, the new defensive coordinator, he needs an edge rusher for his 3-4 defensive scheme. So it's going to be either Quinnen Williams out of Alabama, who's a defensive tackle, so we're probably not going to go that direction. We will go Josh Allen, outside linebacker from Kentucky, as the top edge rusher in this draft, aside from Nick Bosa. So Josh Allen is a pick by the Jets at number 3. And now we will move to the Oakland Las Vegas Raiders. This selection made by Brian Rogers, executive producer for VSiN. Brian, you're on the clock.
Well, like Bruce said, I think the Raiders are open to business and moving back. They have a lot of needs that they have to fill. And I honestly think that the Raiders may trade back on draft day and try to get more picks in the second and third round, because Mike Mayock can make something out of this draft in the 20 to 80 range for players. So if I'm forced to pick here, and I think I am, Quinnen Williams is my number 1 player on the board. I think he has potential to make a big impact. He's 21 years old, a young kid who's just coming into his own. However, they do have depth at interior defensive line already. I love Ed Oliver, his relentless motor. The guy I'd love to have on my team because you could put him in a bunch of different positions. But I'm going to go with a crazy pick here that I think the Raiders may consider. They need a tight end desperately. The tight end has become a very important part of this league. They don't have a tight end right now on the roster, and they made a lot of pickups in free agency. I'm going to go with T.J. Hawkinson here with the number 4 pick to give Derek Carr another receiver. And I think Hawkinson's the best receiver in the draft, period. Forget what position you're playing.
Wow. He blew right through the 30-second clock with his analysis of that pick. But he goes T.J. Hawkinson, tight end out of Iowa. With the first pick by the Raiders in the first round. We got the wrong player up on the draft chart there. Change that to Hawkinson. There we go. Tight end by the Raiders at number 4. How much did you consider moving up for a quarterback, or no consideration at all?
No consideration at all. In fact, I wouldn't use any of the top 4 picks for a quarterback this draft.
I agree with that. All right, let's go to number 5. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock, and that's Chuck Esposito. Chuck, take it away.
First, real quick, I think with the Raiders, that once Allen was off the board, that's going to blow up their draft. I think they want to replace Khalil Mack. He's the best edge rusher. I'm surprised that you make that pick because I think they can trade back and get either Fant or Hickinson. I think they can get that tight end if they need. But I think for Tampa, they're going to go they need some edge rush. They're going to go and grab Devin White out of LSU.
Devin White, I actually kind of like that pick. The Hawkinson pick is, you hope Hawkinson could be Gronk, maybe.
I think he's a smaller version of Travis Kelce.
Okay.
Kelsey.
If you want an impact tight end at number 4, and you're going to go Devin White, linebacker out of LSU to the Buccaneers at number 5. Bruce, did you anticipate the Bucs taking Devin White at number 5?
I think
they are on the clock at number 6 with the New York Giants.
I think they could. I think they're going defense first, and this is going to be a nod to Todd Bowles, his new defensive coordinator for Arians, to try to build that defense like he did in Arizona. But so much for the Bucs. Let's go to the Giants. Even Hoda and Al Roker could tell you that the Giants need a quarterback. And I think the Giants are a team with an extra pick in the middle of the round at 17 in the OBJ trade, could move up if they want a quarterback non-Murray. I think they want Dwayne Haskins. I think they can't wait any longer to identify Eli's successor. And I'm saying at 6, the G-men go Dwayne Haskins, quarterback, Ohio State.
What's the crowd think of that selection? Boo. We don't like that pick.
I think they draft defense and they address the quarterback later in the draft.
I think you way overdrafted Dwayne Haskins there.
Agreed.
You could have moved down to get Haskins, and you're going to be ripped by the New York Post columnist and the New York media for that pick.
I disagree. We'll see. All right.
Bruce goes Dwayne Haskins, quarterback out of Ohio State, with the number 6 pick to the New York Giants. Eli Manning's
I love criticizing. They take Daniel Jones, the 17th pick.
All right, I'm on the clock with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have a new quarterback, Nick Foles. We need a tight end, but the Raiders just took the best tight end off the boards. We're not going to look tight end.
I was too busy finding the boo sound there. What was your pick again, Bruce?
He took Dwayne Haskins.
Dwayne Haskins, okay.
My wife just tweeted and said they're not going to take Haskins, so there you go.
The Jaguars need a tight end. The best one's off the board. The Raiders took him. Also need an offensive line and a wide receiver, but I don't have a receiver I want to take in this pick, and I really don't like to draft offensive linemen in the top 10, but the Jags have an offensive lineman they love in this spot, and it makes sense, so let's do it at number 7. Jawan Taylor, offensive tackle from Florida, 6'5", 340. He can anchor that offensive line. The Jags also open to trade offers here, but for now, we'll take Jawan Taylor, offensive tackle from Florida. Pick number 8, Brian Rogers with the Detroit Lions.
I'll be a little quicker here, hopefully. That's a player that I would have drafted for the Lions. They need help on the right side of that offensive line. I think they also need a linebacker. I think Bush would be a good pick there as well for an off-the-ball linebacker. But they also need to replace Ziggy Ansah, and I think they have to go edge here. I think the best comparison to him, it would be Montez Sweat. So I'm going to go with Sweat here to the Lions at number 8.
Montez Sweat, I like that pick to the Detroit Lions at number 8. And Matt Patricia wants to build a dominant defense, and I think that was a great pick there. I had him as a potential pick here coming up very shortly, but I'm not going to get him now. So Montez Sweat out of Mississippi State. Edge rusher goes to the Detroit Lions at number 8. Number 9, Chuck Esposito drafting for the Buffalo Bills, who took Josh Allen, the quarterback, in the top 10 last year.
I actually had some help for Allen penciled in, and that was Hawkinson and tight end. This is a great spot for Buffalo to grab him. They could possibly move back and maybe get Noah Fant from Iowa as well. But with Hawkinson off the board, they need some help on defense as well. I'm going to go with Rashawn Gray, defensive end, Michigan.
Gray or Gary?
Gary, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Gary.
I was going to say, maybe
couldn't read my own writing.
get a different player. Okay. So Rashawn Gary out of Michigan goes to the Buffalo Bills at number 9. This is a very interesting pick. The Denver Broncos could go so many different directions. They could trade this pick. They could go quarterback. Bruce Marshall picking for the Broncos at number 10.
I'm John Elway, and at least I haven't been sitting on my hands this offseason, though I've been a year late firing the coach, which I should have done last year with Vance Joseph. So I did get rid of him, and I brought in Vic Fangio, which might suggest maybe I go defense in the first round, but not necessarily. They have brought in Joe Flacco, who promises to be the best immobile Bronco quarterback since Craig Morton in the late 70s, but he is immobile. And I think they have to address the quarterback thing here, despite what Flacco has said in the press the last couple of days. And John Elway, who is fond of Drew Lock from Missouri, makes Drew Lock his pick at number 10 in the first round, quarterback, Missouri.
All right, third quarterback off the board in the top 10. Drew Lock from Missouri goes to the Denver Broncos, 10th pick. All right, number 11, I will draft for the Cincinnati Bengals, who make a lot of strange picks in the first round. Here the Bengals need offensive line help. They need a linebacker. Montez Sweat's off the board. That's the guy we wanted. So we'll go Devin Bush, linebacker from Michigan. He's a playmaker. The Bengals definitely need to rebuild that defense. So Devin Bush to the Bengals at number 11. Up next, number 12, the Green Bay Packers. Brian Rogers on the clock.
Devin Bush was a player I was looking at to take for the Packers there. They do need that linebacker. They also need help on the offensive line. And I think you've got a nice blue-collar player in Jonah Williams that you can plug in there in a variety of positions on the offensive line for the Packers to help protect Aaron Rodgers. So that's the player I'm going with here, Jonah Williams to the Packers at number 12.
All right. Offensive line help for the Pack. Jonah Williams to Green Bay at number 12. Number 13, the Miami Dolphins. Chuck Esposito. Dolphins could do themselves a favor by getting a quarterback as well, but I don't know if there's anybody here you like, Chuck. Dolphins on the clock, number 13.
Well, I don't now that Haskins and Locke are off the board. I think they would entertain both of those guys if they were still on the board. There's some rumors out there they really like Haskins a lot. If the Giants don't go that direction and go defense, I could see Miami going there. I think they're going to look to help on the edge, and I think it's going to be Oliver the choice out of Houston on the edge.
Who are you going to take?
I'm going to take Oliver, the defensive tackle.
Ed Oliver.
Ed Oliver.
I love it.
Slips all the way to number 13. That's a good value pick, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Dolphins take Ed Oliver via Chuck Esposito at number 13 to rebuild that defensive line. All right, the 14th pick by the Atlanta Falcons goes to Bruce Marshall.
Yeah, in my mock draft and the gold sheet, last version, I went all the way to the first round, and I had Devin White going here, but he has been taken by the Tampa Bay Bucks earlier in this round, so I can't pick him. Atlanta hasn't been that active in the offseason. I think they believe they have a lot of the pieces there. It had better work for them if Dan Quinn wants to last till next year, and he's got new coordinators, including himself on defense. He's going to go defense here, and I think, how about Brian Burns from Florida State, outside linebacker? I think they need an impact player there. If it can't be Devin White, I think it'll be Burns.
All right, edge rusher goes to the Falcons at number 14. Brian Burns out of Florida State. That pick made by Bruce Marshall. All right, number 15, I will pick for the Washington Redskins. Need a quarterback, need a linebacker, need a wide receiver. Drew Lock's off the board. Montez Sweat's off the board. We're going to go with a prospect I find very intriguing, DK Metcalf, wide receiver out of Mississippi State. Metcalf, 6'5", 235. He's a stud. And I think the Redskins do well to get Metcalf here at number 15. So we'll go that direction. You got to get some help for that quarterback, whoever it's going to be in Washington. Right now it's going to be veterans. And with no young quarterback, Daniel Jones, a consideration here, but we'll go DK Metcalf, a combine superstar, wide receiver out of Ole Miss. All right, let's go to Carolina, the Panthers, and Brian Rogers.
What I'm shocked with right now is that Quinnen Williams, I believe, is still on the board, and he's number one in a lot of mock drafts and a lot of boards.
Yes.
However, the Panthers are sitting there with Kawan Short and Dontari Poe in the middle of their defense, so I don't think that makes a lot of sense to take him. So if I am the Panthers, I'm going to go with, you know what? I'm going to take him. I'm going to take the best defensive player left on the board. I think Ron Rivera would appreciate that. You could put him in a bunch of different places, and those guys are getting older anyway. So let's do Quinnen Williams right there.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to slip that far.
I don't either.
In the draft next week.
I was drooling for that guy. I mean, that's who I thought the Giants could easily have pounced on. They would have addressed the quarterback with the 6th pick and then gone defense here, but unfortunately he's gone.
That's definitely the case of taking the best player available, which is Quinnen Williams at number 16 to the Carolina Panthers. All right, let's take a quick break. We're halfway through the first round on the VSiN 2019 NFL Mock Draft. We come back to second half of the first round. The New York Giants on the clock with Chuck Esposito.
It's The Edge, broadcasting exclusively on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Listen to the show on SiriusXM Channel 204 or watch at VSiN.com.
If you didn't catch VSiN last week, here's some of what you missed.
Do you care to share how successful you were in the last couple of months of the regular season, maybe how many units you actually did take home?
Yeah, actually, up 56 units.
Oh, God.
And it's based on an average bet of 200. I mean, honestly, I started betting $100 on the parlays. You guys have discussed this a lot. I parlayed the games mostly by starting time, and so I started at $100. So I was really up $2,000 at one point.
And before the Blazers won that game last night, the whole time I was like, you know what? I hope they get swept in the first round against the Jazz. If they end up 4 like they're trying to end up, I just hope that, to me, it's like they were striving for middle management. And so anybody who thought that wasn't crazy that they were sitting Lillard yesterday and McCollum, what are you doing? What are you trying to accomplish? You're basing this on the small sample size of what you did because you were 2-2 against the Warriors or you were 0-4 against nothing made sense. But you're right. They were trying to avoid Oklahoma City. They end up with Oklahoma City. Why should we not believe them that they're scared of this matchup?
You ask the other half of the question, which is how do they respond to all of those shortcomings in this one? You think back to what happened in Game 1 against Winnipeg last year, where they go on the road, Winnipeg coming off the series against Nashville, very impressive, and Winnipeg scores 3 early goals, wins Game 1. But the Knights responded in Game 2, won that game, and then won 4 straight to finish the series in 5 games. I'm not predicting that will happen here, but the point is that this is a group that doesn't have 2 duds in a row.
Do you remember the game earlier on Monday night this year? The Rams 54.
Yep.
Remember that game?
Rams,
the Chiefs
yes,
51, right?
Yeah, sure do.
People are talking about that game.
We're still paying off that total. But
it was crazy, right? That's every week in the Arena Football League. That's every week. You got scores.
That sells the league.
You want to bet on Arena Football.
you just gave me some very
I'll give you. Hey, whenever you guys call me, I come on the show and I give you good stuff. You know.
Noted. Can't make the totals too high.
That's
there we go.
This segment is brought to you by PointsBet, New Jersey's premium sportsbook. They have the best promos out there, including an amazing offer for the NBA playoffs. All you have to do is place a moneyline bet on any NBA team. If your team is up in the third quarter, they will pay you out instantly, even if your team goes on to lose. Be sure to sign up with the code VSiN, and you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $1,000. Again, that's code VSIN. Don't miss out on all the action. Download the app on iOS and Android today. New Jersey only. Must be 21 or older. To bet, additional terms and conditions apply. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. PointsBet. Stay sharp.
Welcome back. Are you ready to get an advantage? Good, because it's now time to get back to the edge.
All right, welcome back to the 2019 NFL Mock Draft presented by VSiN. We're at the South Point Sportsbook, and if you looked at this sheet from the Westgate, the prop to be the number 1 overall pick, when it opened, Kyler Murray was minus 120 to be the top pick. Right now, 1-20. That's how overwhelming the number has become for Kyler Murray to go number 1 to the Cardinals, and that's where Chuck Esposito picked the former Oklahoma quarterback to go in the first half of our first round of the mock draft. Kyler Murray to the Cardinals at number 1. Chuck is on the clock with the New York Giants next. Bruce, did you have something to add?
No, I was just going to say, nice brawl here at the White Sox and the Royals this afternoon. And Ned Yost and
watching
Renneria.
the Night Shark series a little bit.
Yeah.
Brought us back
I mean,
to
the managers were going at it here. This is interesting.
All right, of the 15 players of Westgate listed for the possibilities to be the number one pick, I think we have 13 of these guys off the board so far. We are 16 picks through the first round. Pick number 17, Chuck Esposito on the clock for the G-Men, New York Giants. Chuck, take it away.
It is the Giants. Just really quickly, I would have rather seen the Giants address defense at 6. I think there is no clear-cut number 2 quarterback. I know they grab Haskins there. Now I think they're going to have to address defense. I think they could use some help on the offensive line and at wide receiver, but they're desperate for an edge. I'm going to go Cleveland Farrell, defensive end, Clemson.
All right, Farrell out of Clemson, defensive end, goes to the New York Giants at number 17. Bruce, if you're done watching the baseball fight, pick for the Minnesota Vikings at number 18.
Yes. Back to the Giants. As I said at the break, they will not boo a quarterback taken in the first round in New York. Just remember that. Vikings, we'll talk about booing. They did a lot last year in Minnesota. And the best rumor that didn't happen in the offseason was the fact Rick Spielman was apparently, well, there was rumor, they were talking about bringing Case Keenum back. That they are so dissatisfied with Cousins, that Mike Zimmer is so dissatisfied with Cousins, he fired DiFilippo, the offensive coordinator. Bad stuff there in Minnesota. They didn't end up making the deal for Cousins. They need help on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. The best guard on the board is Cody Ford from Oklahoma. They badly need help up front. And I say Cody Ford, guard, Oklahoma, moves to Minnesota at 18.
All right, solid pick by the Vikings at number 18. I'll pick for the Tennessee Titans at number 19. We need help on the defensive line, offensive line. Need a wide receiver. DK Metcalf of Ole Miss is off the board. That's a guy we liked at number 19. So we'll go Hollywood Marquise Brown, wide receiver out of Oklahoma. We're going to give Marcus Mariota a speed receiver. So Marquise Brown of Oklahoma to the Titans at number 19. Now on the clock at number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers and Brian Rodgers.
You took that one off my list, and I think it's a good thing for the Steelers because Hollywood Brown is related to one Antonio Brown.
Yes.
And they probably want to clear all that out of the clubhouse anyway, but I think they do need a wide receiver at some point. The Steelers do. The Steelers also need some help in the defensive backfield, at cornerback, at safety, at linebacker. So I was talking to Matt Humans outside about this earlier. They made a crazy pick last year with Edmonds reaching for him. And I think that they're going to reach for a guy here that's probably a little bit later that can play both safety and corner and play in the slot. And that's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out of Florida to fulfill potentially both safety and cornerback needs there for the Steelers.
Interesting. All right, so the Florida Gators DB goes in the number 20 spot to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chuck Esposito back on the clock for the Seattle Seahawks at number 21. Chuck, go ahead.
Seattle has the least amount of picks, guys, in the entire draft. There's only 4 picks. You talk about teams earlier that want to trade back. I think Seattle's one of those teams. If one of the quarterbacks drops or one of the wide receivers or a tight end, there's some value there for someone to trade up with Seattle. I think they will make a trade. They only have 2 picks in the top 120. If you're going to address anything on that team, I think it's O-line. I think they go Chris Lindstrom, guard, Boston College.
All right, the Boston College guard goes to the Seahawks. At number 21, we know they need offensive line help. No boos from the crowd on that pick by Chuck Esposito. All right, Bruce, you got booed for your Giants pick. You're still ticked off about it. Number 22, you are picking for the Baltimore Ravens, who have overgone a facelift here in the offseason. Who do you pick for the Ravens at the 22 spot?
Yeah, let's see if my wife questions this pick like she did the Haskins pick. Ravens, new GM here, Eric DeCosta, promoted. Ozzie Newsome now back in just an advisory role here, so it is a new era there. And in the offseason, they had to let some key defensive pieces go. They let Suggs go, Mosley go, Zadarius Smith. So you think they might go defense front 7. Not necessarily. They need a little bit more help on offense. They did sign Mark Ingram in the offseason, but this experiment with Lamar Jackson needs a few more pieces. They go wide receiver here, and I'm going to say N'Keal Harry, Arizona State, big play, wide out to the Ravens at number 22.
A second rounder in most mock drafts picked by Bruce Marshall at number 22 for the Baltimore Ravens, N'Keal Harry. How many wide receivers is that off the board now? Is that 4?
3 so far.
Three wide receivers off the board. The third one goes to the Ravens and N'Keal Harry at number 22. All right, I'll pick number 23 for the Houston Texans. Need some offensive line help. The guys we had rated the highest are now off the board. We're going to go for the best player available. We have one we really like on the defensive side and one we really like on the offensive side. We're going to go with Josh Jacobs, running back out of Alabama. We think the Raiders want a running back. So we're going to go ahead and take the guy for the Texans that we believe the Raiders have on their draft board. Josh Jacobs to the Texans, running back out of Alabama, number 23. Picking number 24, Brian Rogers for the Oakland Raiders.
I have Seattle.
Well, it's too late to trade up for
trade
Jacobs.
up and grab Jacobs ahead of him in the real draft. So
I was salivating a little bit seeing that Jacobs was still there at 24. Look, I think running back's a pretty deep position this year anyway. For you may not get Jacobs level, but I think you can get one later. The Raiders desperately need help in the back end of their defense. I think cornerback is still a need that they have. Very strongly. We already took care of the tight end need that I thought they had. Of course, we haven't hit the edge rusher, but I think that we can get creative a little bit around Gunther and his defense and the players they picked up. So I'm going to go with a player out of Temple named Rock Ya-Sin. The relationship that Mike Mayock has with Temple, being from Philadelphia, his work ethic, he's a tough kid. I think they're going to love having a guy like that in their clubhouse.
All right, looks like a pretty good pick. The Temple DB goes to the Oakland Raiders at number 24. Chuck Esposito on the clock now with the Philadelphia Eagles at number 25. Chuck, who do you like here in this spot?
I looked at Philly and thought their two biggest needs are wide receiver and DB. Thought heavily about wide receiver, but some of the guys I like are off the board already. They do pick up DJ, so I think that helps wide receiver. They had some trouble on the back end last year. I'm going to go corner. I'm going to go Greedy Williams, cornerback, LSU.
That was a player the Texans were considering in number 23, Chuck. So you get him with the Eagles at number 25. Greedy Williams, cornerback out of LSU, 6'3" corner. And I think that's a pretty good pick by the Eagles there at number 25. Bruce Marshall on the clock now with the Indianapolis Colts at 26.
Chris Ballard. I am Chris Ballard here, and I had a lot of money to spend in the offseason, but I graciously allowed the Jets to jump to the front of the queue to get Le'Veon Bell when a lot of people thought I would be bidding upon him. But I didn't sit out free agency totally. Justin Houston, linebacker from the Chiefs, of whom I am familiar because I used to be there with the Chiefs, and Funchess, the wide receiver from the Panthers. So they did do a little bit in free agency. But I think they go what they think might be the best player here, cornerback. How about DeAndre Baker from Georgia? If Greedy Williams was still there, if you didn't take him the previous pick, that's who I might go for. But if he's not, let's try another SEC quarterback corner. That's Baker, DeAndre from Georgia.
All right. Assuming the Oakland Las Vegas Raiders don't make some trades in the first round, this will be their third pick of the first round. The Raiders have taken a tight end. They have taken a cornerback. So what do they need here? They got to have defensive help at number 27. So I'll pick for the Raiders at this spot. Josh Jacobs was a guy that was John Gruden was really salivating to get. He's not going to get him. He's off the board to the Texans. We're going to go defense here. Going to go with a guy who at one point was projected as a top 10 pick, but he has slipped. Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle out of Clemson. We go Dexter Lawrence to the Raiders at number 27. Number 28, Brian Rogers with the LA Chargers.
So the Chargers, I think, are okay on their corners of their defensive line with Bosa and Ingram, but they do need some help on the interior of that defensive line. And there's a player out of Clemson who is a high-character player that had great production on the field, certainly won a national championship, and that's Christian Wilkins. I think he'd be a great addition to that team, a good guy in the locker room as well, and solidifies that interior defensive line for the Chargers.
All right, Christian Wilkins goes to the Chargers at number 28. So that's back-to-back Clemson defensive tackles. Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins go back-to-back there at 27 and 28. All right, Chuck Esposito, your final pick of the first round for the Kansas City Chiefs at number 29.
I looked at the Chiefs, and I could see him going edge. I could see him going corner. But it's awfully tough when you see Noah Fant still on the board. I know you've got Travis Kelce there. He's had some injury problems. I think you just get Mahomes another weapon. He's just too good to pass up, although I really like Byron Murphy, the cornerback out of Washington. I'm going to go tight end out of Iowa, Noah Fant here for the Kansas City Chiefs.
And that might affect the total number of Big Ten players selected in the first-round prop.
Green Bay's awfully upset with that pick, let me tell you.
All right, the Chiefs get a tight end, and Patrick Mahomes gets another weapon. At number 29, Noah Fant goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 30, Bruce with the Green Bay Packers. You're on the clock.
Yes, you took him right away from me, Chuck. I was ready to take Noah Fant at this spot with the Packers.
We could swing a trade if you want to throw a number 2 in there. I'll be happy to move back one spot with no problem at all.
Let's do it. Give me Fant. I'll do it right now if you want.
I'll take Byron Murphy, then the corner out of Washington when I trade back.
Then I take Fant. But for the purpose of this exercise here, the Packers, this is their second pick in the first round. You guys had Jonah Williams going earlier, the offensive lineman. I think it's very possible they go offense again with the new head coach with the offensive influence in Matt LaFleur. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers would like all the help he can get. But how about Voshan Joseph, outside linebacker, Florida? They need a little bit of depth on defense. If they addressed offense with the first pick in the first round, they may go defense here. Or also, Gutekunst with these 2 picks could also be dealing. Just keep that in mind, too.
Interesting. All right, so you're going to go defense here for the Packers at number 30. Did Aaron Rodgers approve of that pick?
Maybe not, and they better be careful. You need at least one offensive player in the first round. The lineman at number 12, I think he would approve of them.
Okay, we'll go number 31 here. L.A. Rams, what do they need? An edge rusher. They need an offensive line help. The edge rusher we wanted is off the board, but we're going to go with a little bit of a reach here because we're going to take the NCAA career sacks leader, a 6'5", 270-pound defensive end out of Louisiana Tech, Jalen Ferguson. The Rams desperately need defensive edge rushing help, and Jalen Ferguson is going to be our guy, Louisiana Tech defensive end at number 31. Number 32 pick, last of the first round. Last year, this is very dramatic. The quarterback prop came down to the last pick. The Ravens moved up to take Lamar Jackson. What will the Patriots do at number 32?
Can I trade out of this pick?
Yes.
Can.
Potentially. So they lost Trent Brown, obviously, to the Raiders. Raiders picked him up, so they lost their left tackle. But Wynn is coming back, the guy they drafted the previous year. So offensive line is not a need. A player like Jeffrey Simmons is very intriguing, who was hurt last year out of Mississippi State. Very great player. But I also see that they have a weakness with their receiving core. I think that they need help with special teams. And I'm going to take a little bit of a flyer here as well. And I'm going to go with Deebo Samuel to the Patriots at number 32 because he could do a lot of things. He's got very twitchy reaction, and those are the types of characteristics Bill Belichick likes.
All right, just for the record, Brian, that was the highest-rated player we had on our draft board at the L.A. Rams headquarters, and we almost took him at number 30.
Hey, we agree on something.
All right, Brian Rogers, VSiN executive producer, Chuck Esposito, Sunset Station Sportsbook, and Bruce Marshall of the Gold Sheet. That wraps up our 2019 VSiN NFL mock draft, but we're going to come back and analyze the picks. We'll give the prop bets. We'll do all that next.
It's The Edge, broadcasting exclusively on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Listen to the show on SiriusXM Channel 204 or watch at VSiN.com.
VSiN last week. Here's some of what you missed.
Did you hedge it all? I mean, you're unbelievable. Croatia 66-1 in the World Cup. They get to the championship. Watford to win the FA Cup 60-1. They're in the championship. Frankfurt to win Europa 33-1, although they got beat yesterday. Did you hedge or take the cash out option on any of these?
Oh, no. Hedging's for gardens. I always think, I'm not, unless there's something drastically goes wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, they're playing Manchester City in the final of the FA Cup. How can I hedge? I've got to have a huge amount of money on Manchester City to cover my position. So,
some folks have trouble understanding that in the very same baseball game, you're looking at two teams where the value shifted on them. And so what it was a good bet earlier, then the good bet was on the complete opposite team. And when people come at sports just thinking about the teams themselves, they have trouble, first-time bettors do, wrapping their heads around that concept.
What a fantastic subject.
Yes.
I still think he's going to be back. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back at some point next season.
You think so, huh? It's interesting. So he's 37
now.
The
thing is, retirement's always appealing to people until they get into retirement.
Yeah.
And then once you get into about, 6 months, a year into it, you're like, damn, this is boring. I can't play golf every day. You just can't sit on the beach and drink. I'm getting sick of sitting around with my family. I'm going to go back and play. We go back to play basketball. I still have the ability. And at some point next year, I think D-Wade's going to say, I still got it. I can come back and play. And maybe LeBron talks him back to come play with the Lakers.
They're not getting free agents.
Who knows? Something like that.
Dwayne Wade could be their top-tier signing in the offseason.
and the comeback by Columbus against Tampa. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they've got to be thinking to themselves now. I mean, that's a team. Anything less than hoisting the cup is a disappointment for a team that wins 62 games. And I'm going to tell you right now, the pressure is on. Do we have a number out for their second game tomorrow?
We do have
down at Tampa. They got to be a pretty substantial favorite, I know. But
250.
Okay.
250. Remember, they bet them up last night. They got as high as 270.
You hear what Mike Palm said about Bobrovsky?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when he gets hot, man, he can stay hot, and that would be great.
Welcome back. Are you ready to get an advantage? Good, because it's now time to get back to the edge.
All right, the first round of the 2019 VSiN NFL mock draft is in the books. All 32 picks have been made. So now we're going to analyze the picks and the prop bets and see where these numbers shake out after we've made 32 selections. Now, keep in mind, we did not do trades, and that might affect the quarterback prop. But 4 teams did not have a first-round pick. And those 4 teams were the Bears, the Saints, the Cowboys, and the Browns, Chuck. And obviously those teams traded those picks away within the past year.
I think all 4 of those teams are playoff teams again this year. I think with what they gave up, you look at what Mac did for Chicago. You look at what Cooper did for Dallas. Davenport helped the Saints a lot. I think they all made good trades. You don't know a lot of times, especially when you're drafting late, what those guys are, if they're going to pan out or not. So I don't think it was bad trades. I think this year you're going to see a bevy of trades again. I can't remember having a discussion as much as we had with the 2 tight ends where they could potentially go in the first round. I do think you're going to have another quarterback go. I think somebody is going to roll the dice and trade up to get Daniel Jones from Duke. Yeah. I think you're going to have at least 4 go in the first round. There's been a lot of chatter about Will Grier as well, maybe somewhere early in the first part of the second round, but I do think someone will trade up because of that 5th year that you have control of the first round picks and roll the dice with Daniel Jones.
All right, so the prop, it's up here at the South Point. Number of quarterbacks selected in the first round, 3.5. The over is minus 260. We did not do trades. Bruce Marshall, do you think we will have 4 quarterbacks taken in the first round?
Yes, and I think Jones will go. In fact, in my mock draft that I have up at goldsheet.com, it was Jones going at 15 to the Redskins, and I already had Locke going, and I had Haskins going, and Kyler Murray first. Yes, there's such a premium on quarterbacks here. I think it would go over. And like Chuck said, if somebody's in love with Will Grier, I mean, you see teams really getting in love with these quarterbacks, and if they're afraid they're going to get picked, they'll trade up and they'll do something.
I have a question, Bruce. With you had him going at 15, did you have both Haskins and Locke going before that? Did you have 3 quarterbacks going in the top 14?
Yep. I had Murray at 1, and Haskins at 6, and Locke at 10, and Jones at 15.
Because if Haskins doesn't go at 6, I think it becomes really interesting then. Because is Miami or Washington in love with him? Would they trade up then with a number of teams that want to trade back, maybe to get in front of Denver if it's Haskins or Locke that they like better?
Yeah, and remember, Cincinnati is in there too, and Cincinnati could be looking at a quarterback as well. So I think there's quarterback-hungry teams, and I would go over that 3.5 prop.
Yep. Brian Rogers, how do you think it's going to play out with the quarterbacks in the first round?
I agree with both Chuck and Bruce on this. You know, that 5th-year option is really important when you're developing a quarterback, and you get a little extra time to take care of that. Plus, you have the break on the salary cap to have a guy like that on your team. Now, Daniel Jones, he doesn't rate very well under pressure. He doesn't rate very, very well throwing the ball down the field. It's really his physical traits and his brain that seems to be, not to mention Cutcliffe coaching him, that seems to kind of put him up there. But I'm not sure he's really a first-round guy, but it's going to happen because of the importance of quarterback and that 5th-year option.
All right, so the prop, 3.5 quarterbacks in the first round. We all think it's going to sneak over, and it's going to be Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock, and Daniel Jones. Chuck, do you think there's any chance Will Grier goes in the first round or any other quarterback?
I do. I think there is a chance. I think there's a lot of teams that like him too. They kind of he reminds me a little bit of Baker Mayfield, just kind of his moxie and that confidence and swagger. Absolutely. I think, New England, too, is interesting at the end of the first round is that, at some point, I think they're going to have to draft that quarterback. They've looked at Stidham, I think Grier's in play for them as well. So it wouldn't stun me to see a 5th quarterback go at the end of the first round.
Well, one thing that could change the dynamics a bit, if Arizona really does move Josh Rosen somewhere, and some team might think, well, he might take our place of a quarterback. That's something we want to watch too, and I think that's going to happen as well.
Don't you think they? I mean, I think they have to. If you draft Murray, I think in the days after that, or even draft day, you make that trade at some point. I just think the dynamics that it presents, if they both come to camp, is just going to create a lot of problems.
I think
they are. Coach, you have to make the change, and at that point, cut ties with Josh Rosen.
I mean, that's an interesting topic here because if the Cardinals draft Murray at number 1, they have to deal Rosen, right? And would you deal him during the draft, Brian?
I think you have to, because if you don't have one quarterback, you don't have any quarterbacks, and you've got a divided locker room.
Plus, I think
potentially
his value is so much more during the draft, because then depending where Locke goes, or depending where Greer could go, or Haskins could go, I think it changes so many things then, because a team who misses out. Say Washington misses out on one of those guys, or Miami does. Does Rosen become that much more appealing to them?
Steve Keim is waiting to try to squeeze a 1 out of somebody.
He's not getting
He's not getting one, but he's waiting as long as he can, and then he's going to make a move. And their first pick could be in play here, too. If somebody wants to jumble around, there's some interest in Kyler Murray. So don't rule out that Arizona could make a deal, and Rosen's part of that.
I think it's super interesting if the Giants do pass on a quarterback at 6. Is Rosen in play for them in a trade?
Yeah.
And I think if they go defense there, I think they can really upgrade that team a lot with their 6th and the 17th pick on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe they could go wide out. They have a lot of options to go. But if they pass on a quarterback at 6, I really think Rosen is in play trade during the draft, either day 1 or 2 with the New York Giants.
And if Rosen was in this draft class, he might be the number 1 quarterback in this class. So that's another thing to remember for the value of getting him.
Yeah, he may not get one. He's holding out for that hope, and that's why he's going to wait until April 25.
He played in front of a horrific offensive line last year. I'm not saying he was good by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't help having that offensive line. Johnson was hurt. He wasn't the same guy. Although he played, it just didn't look like the same David Johnson. They couldn't get him into the mix like they did 2 years before. They had some question marks at wide receiver and at tight end. The defense wasn't any good. It wasn't a good situation for Josh Rosen.
All right, so if Rosen is dealt, does that change your opinion on how many quarterbacks might go in the first round? If you're going to bet this prop over 3.5, you still like it over 3.5?
I think it's an interesting dynamic if he goes. I just don't know if he goes day 1 or not.
Right.
So I'm still going to go with the over, because I don't know if that trade happens day 1. Maybe it happens day 2 to see what they could get. A team that maybe missed out then makes that trade for Josh Rosen, and the Cardinals get a little bit more. I'm still going to go with over 3.5 in the first round.
I agree.
Me too.
All right, so in our mock draft, we have 3 quarterbacks going in the first round again, but we all think it's going over that prop total of 3.5 after you see trades and teams reach for quarterbacks late in the first round. So the prop is 3.5 on quarterbacks to go in the first round, and over is minus 260. So it's priced that way as well. Let's look at some of the position props. Hopefully this mock draft helps you get an idea how you might want to bet some of these props. Number of wide receivers selected in the first round. Sean Kavanaugh, our producer, how many did we take in the first round?
If you count Deebo Samuel out of South Carolina as a wide receiver, 4.
Okay, so the prop is 2.5. Who was the third wide receiver off the board? We had DK Metcalf, Hollywood Marquise Brown. Who's the third?
And N'Keal Harry.
N'Keal Harry. Do you guys feel confident we'll have over 2.5 wide receivers?
I do. I think actually A.J. Brown out of Ole Miss could go in that mix too.
Right.
I think Harry is a guy that Arizona is just hoping falls to the first pick in the second round. Maybe they trade up to get it. They need a big-time wideout, too. He's a hometown kid. I could see, you get Murray and Harry. It helps that offense so much. I think, actually, A.J. Brown, again, has a potential to be in the first round. I think it easily goes over 2.5, in my opinion.
I do, too. And by the way, I had J.J. Arcega-Whiteside going last in mine from Stanford to the Patriots, so I think he could go over. One other note. Right. We only had one running back go, and that was Jacobs. And I think it's very unlikely that if there's only one running back and just a couple of wideouts, I think the combination of those two, we'll see a few more, so I would look over the 2.5 with the receivers.
Now, another one is Paris Campbell is interesting to a lot of teams out there as well, and he's been talked about in the first round.
Okay, let's move to a number of Clemson players taken in the first round of the draft. The prop here at the South Point is 2.5, over under minus 110. Price the same way as a wide receiver prop. Sean, how many Clemson players did we have in the first round?
3. Took 3 of the 4 defensive linemen.
It was Farrell, it was Dexter Lawrence, and who was the
Wilkins.
Christian Wilkins. That looks like one that's going to go over. Rogers, what are the chances of Clemson only gets 2 guys in the first round?
I think the only consideration is the fact that both Furl, it's pronounced Furl, by the way, and Lawrence didn't really participate in their pro day workouts. So teams that really are into that data may pass on these guys, and they may fall a little bit.
I agree with Brian. I could see Lawrence potentially dropping to the early part of round 2. So I think that's a little bit of a question mark there. I think it's really fringe if it goes over that 2.5 or not. I think Lawrence, more than Furl, could drop to the second round.
So you think this price is priced exactly right at Pick'em, huh?
Exactly right at Pick'em.
Yeah. Okay, how about Alabama players to go in the first round? The prop is 3, and it's minus 110. Sean, how many Alabama players?
According to my quick calculations, 3.
We had Quinnen Williams. We had the offensive lineman, right? And
Jonah Williams.
Yep, and we also
Jacobs.
had Josh Jacobs. So looks like 3 is the right number on that Alabama prop. Total number of defensive players selected in the top 10. The prop is 6.5. The under is minus 140. How many of our top 10 picks were defensive players?
Exactly half. 5 of the 10.
5 of the 10.
What happens when you throw a tight end into the top 10?
Exactly.
It really throws a monkey wrench into everything.
The under is shaded minus 140 at 6.5. It's probably going to be 6 defensive players in the top 10. Brian, is that how your mock works out in most occasions?
Yeah, I had it at 7 potentially.
You had 7?
Yeah. Again, if the Raiders do what they're supposed to do in that pick, that everybody thinks they're going to do and take an edge rusher, then that may change the dynamic.
Usually we see a big-time aircraft carrier offensive lineman who is a top 5 pick, maybe multiples of those guys, but I don't know that we see one this year who's going to be that highly regarded, so that may change the dynamic in that first 10 to the defensive side. That's why there might be a few more.
I agree with these guys. I think there's so many talented edges this year coming out that I could easily see it be at 6 or 7.
Yes.
And depending on what the Raiders do as well, if the tight end isn't in the mix, I think that over is
That's
definitely
a tough
in
prop
play.
to bet because of trades. We don't know how those top 10 picks are going to shove. There's going to be some trades, Chuck.
Well, it's such a quarterback-driven league, and we've seen over the last couple of years how teams are willing to trade up for the quarterbacks. You saw it happen with Wentz and Goff. You saw what the Bears did to move up for Trubisky. We saw it last year again. If somebody falls in love with Haskins, and if he doesn't go number 6, you could see somebody kind of getting in that 7, 8, 9 range to try to grab him before Denver does if you really like him.
Right. Okay, let's go by conference. How about number of Big Ten players to go in the first round? The prop number looks high to me. At the South Point, it's a 7.5. It's priced at Pick'em minus 110. I lean under on this one. Sean, how many Big Ten players do we have in the first round?
You guys took 6 Big Ten guys. A lot of Ohio State guys early and some Michigan, but 6, and then the 2 Iowa tight ends, so 6 overall.
Brian Rogers, what could push this over 7.5?
I don't see much that can push this over. This is one of those numbers that really jumps out to me as being a little too high.
Did we not go with Devin Bush? Didn't get picked?
No, he got picked.
He did get picked. Okay, so then I'd say you're right. Yeah, I don't think
I tried to add as much as I could. 7 was the highest I could come up with.
Yeah, same. Okay.
Yep, same.
Yeah.
This looks like one of the better bets on the props.
Yeah.
Big Ten players under 7.5, right?
I'd take that under in a second.
Looks pretty good to me. All right.
Yep.
Total number of SEC players drafted in the first round, 12.5. And what would we come up with for SEC players?
There were a total of 14 SEC
14
guys.
Wow, they overshaded minus 120 on that.
It wouldn't surprise me if there's more. Such a strong conference, and the way that those guys have translated to the next level, I definitely like the over in that bet.
All right, that's Chuck Esposito of Sunset Station, Bruce Marshall of the Gold Sheet, Brian Rogers of VSiN's executive producer. We will take a quick break here on the VSiN 2019 mock draft. We come back, we wrap it up with the best players on the board we did not take in the first round.
It's The Edge, broadcasting exclusively on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Listen to the show on SiriusXM Channel 204 or watch at VSiN.com.
If you didn't catch VSiN last week, here's some of what you missed.
What about the XFL down the road coming in next year, they're saying? What do we hear
I
about
believe they will have great success because they're going to fund it properly. You know, everything I'm hearing and reading is it's going to be funded with $500 million. Vince McMahon will do it the right way. Football players are not hard to find. I use this example. Every year we run tryout camps for the Philadelphia Soul or the Albany Empire, the Atlantic City Blackjacks, and we get 200 to 300 players show up at every tryout camp.
200 to 300?
200 to 300. The first tryout camp we had in Philadelphia, I'll never forget it because we had it at Temple University on their outdoor fields. And I pulled up in my car about an hour before we were supposed to start. There was a line like around the fields. We had 1,313 young men and some women try out for the Philadelphia Soul of the Arena Football League.
I've known him for about 7 years. I'm pretty sure I went to the wedding. They got married in Vegas. And I've never really seen them fight. And they were arguing about, it was 2 games on Thursday. I don't remember the games. And they got in such a heated argument. And then she was right. And they didn't bet because they try to bet 500 to 1,000 a game on every game. I mean, so they have a lot in action, you know, plus they play at the tables a couple 100,000. And she gambles too. It's not just him. I mean, she'll gamble as much as him at the table. So they're both equally good players. They got in such a beef Thursday, then they made up. Friday, the same thing happened, only he won a game. And I thought they were just, you know, full of it. They filed for divorce. Yeah, I've talked to them both, and it's done.
And it came down to what game they wanted to bet or not bet.
Correct.
Josh, who'd you play in this tournament?
Just Tiger.
That's it?
I don't bet too much, and I felt like everything that he's been doing, it's been for this moment. This tournament obviously means the most to him, and if he wins a major, it's great, but I think if he wins the Masters, it's even more important. And I told you off air, he's been doing so many things, in my opinion, this year in each tournament that he's been working on a certain area of his game, and I think it's all in preparation for this. As much as he would like to win the other tournaments, I don't think it meant as much as being ready for this one.
Welcome back. Are you ready to get an advantage? Good, because it's now time to get back to the edge.
All right, wrapping up hour number 2 here in the Edge with Chuck Esposito, Sunset Station Sportsbook Director, Bruce Marshall of the Gold Sheet, and Brian Rogers, Executive Producer here at VSiN. Our 2019 NFL Mock Draft is over. We've analyzed the props. Let's talk about the best players still on the board for day 2. I've got a curious case here. Stanford running back Bryce Love. How far will he slip? Brian, who are some of the best players you see on the board for day 2?
Well, to answer your question, probably third round for Love would be the highest I'd see him going. Andre Dillard, the left tackle out of Washington State, he's going to get a lot of attention. I think he will go in the first round at some point. He's got very, very good feet. He mirrors the defensive players very well. Not the best strength. I think he only put up 24 reps on the bench, but he is very quick for a left tackle.
That's one fewer rep than Bruce Marshall put up. Bruce, who are the best prospects you see on the board for day 2?
Dillard, I would have mentioned him, and I don't think we had Greg Little going from Ole Miss either, did we?
That's true.
Okay, so he's a left tackle, which is valued, and he's NFL ready, and he's played in the SEC, and he's dealt with guys like Myles Garrett before, and he's fared pretty well. I'd be surprised if we talked that offensive linemen are going to be downgraded a little bit, but by the middle of the first round, later part, if he's still out there, somebody's going to take him. So I think if he's around in the second day, he goes quick. Greg Little, offensive tackle, left tackle, Ole Miss.
Chuck, who do you see out there?
5 of the 6 that I had left were offensive linemen. I think I had a Dillard on that list, Bradbury from NC State, Cody Ford from Oklahoma, Eric McCoy from A&M. But I know we talked about the 2 tight ends from Iowa. I also have Irv Smith from Alabama. I think he's a really good tight end. I could see him in that mix as well. It wouldn't stun me if somehow he's the second tight end off the board. If the Raiders don't go Fant or Hawkinson and they can't get Fant, I could see them going Irv Smith maybe late in the first round. So from an offensive side, as far as a skill position, he's my highest rated player on the board. And I also mentioned A.J. Brown earlier from Ole Miss. I think he can be in that mix as well if he drops to day 2.
Good point. We had only one running back go in the first round, right? That was Josh Jacobs out of Alabama. There are a lot of really talented running backs that could go in rounds 2, 3, and 4.
My favorite running back is David Montgomery from Iowa State.
Yep.
He sheds tackles. He makes guys miss. He doesn't have the best top end speed, but he makes guys miss, and that's something you want to have around the line of scrimmage for sure.
I tell you who, I think Benny Snell would be a steal for somebody out of Kentucky. He does a lot of things well.
Yep.
I mean, north-south runner, very reliable. He's going to help somebody, and I think a high pick in the second day.
That's
I
actually
think
a good
Singletary
point.
as well. Devin Singletary, I think, is one of those backs at 5'7".
Florida Atlantic.
Tarek Cohen type, mix. I think he's one of those guys that can come out of the backfield, be a Hill Cohen type guy as well.
All right, so read Bruce Marshall's mock draft in this week's Point Spread Weekly. That's out today. Bruce, you also have that up at the gold sheet, and you take Dwayne Haskins to the Giants at number 6.
We'll see. I tell you, Al Roker's pick, so I'm going to go with Al Roker and Hoda from the Today Show.
All right. Chuck Esposito, Sunset Station, you have your NFL draft props up, right?
We do. We've got draft props up. A lot we're adjusting. We're taking some down on the fly just because of all the rumors and rumblings and smoke screens that are out there. It's going to be fun, though. We've got our draft parties we talked about, so it's fun talking about the draft and the schedule that comes out. To me, it kicks off the football season, guys.
And your draft party next week, what time?
Next Thursday, night of the first round. Doors open at 3 o'clock. First picks around 4:30. Maybe you're lucky and you can win a draft cap from your favorite team that night as well.
All right, Brian Rogers, how about the VSiN NFL draft show next week?
So you'll be joined by Jonathan Von Tobel and Michael Lombardi, who's coming back to join us for that. Maybe Bruce can come back and join us as well. We're looking for a cast of characters to come get us through the 4 to 5 hours potentially of following that draft, but it should be a lot of fun. We did it last year. I think we all had a blast doing it.
It was great last year. Chuck, we'll have you call in hopefully during
That'd
the
be
draft.
great. I'd love to. That'd be fun.
All right, Chuck Esposito, Brian Rogers, Bruce Marshall. That wraps up the 2019 NFL mock draft from VSiN. We'll be back next hour with baseball, basketball, and hockey betting.
It's The Edge, broadcasting exclusively on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Listen to the show on SiriusXM Channel 204 or watch at VSiN.com.
When it comes to the biggest months, I mean, you could almost make a case now that there's something going on every month. I think when you look at April,